things I'm looking for when I interview somebody is, I feel like this is a good person. I feel like it's a good person for kids. Do they like kids? Do they enjoy being around kids? And do they want to be at Steele Clemens High School? Do they want to? Are they excited to be here, or is this just another stop along the way for them? And that's.
Hello, everyone. This is Glenn West, Assistant Executive Director of THSCA. I want to invite you to make plans for our regional meeting and POI meetings. Our regional meeting is on February the 1st, the first Saturday in February. A very important meeting, and be looking for that. It'll be all over the state. As far as the POI meetings, that meeting should start happening sometime in the month of January. The first meetings will be taking place actually the second or third week in January. A POI meeting is not a regional meeting. The POI meeting is actually a meeting with your power of influence coaches on your staff to hear real issues that are happening within your region, and also information that can go a little deeper than what happens at the regional meeting, as we are preparing for that great meeting on February the 1st. I want to also make sure you know that the Leadership Summit is on February 24th in Arlington. It's at Esports Stadium. We look forward to seeing everybody there. And other than that, love to see you. Thank you so much for your support of THSCA, and we look forward to spending the spring together. Thank you.
Hey coaches, did you know we're now offering shows for all sports? That's right, whether it's basketball, volleyball, softball, baseball, football, soccer, you name it, we've got you covered. If you're looking for a way to showcase your program, promote your players, and highlight the amazing things happening with your team, our coaches shows are the perfect solution. Plus, our business model lets you or your booster club raise money while building excitement and support for your program. Don't miss the opportunity to take your team's story to the next level. Find out how you can get your very own coaches show. Reach out to Chris at 713-269-4620 today. That's 713-269-4620, because every team deserves the spotlight. All right, welcome back to the Coach's Call. I'm Chris Doelle, and today I am joined again by Libby Pacheco. It's such an honor. You do such a good job at these, Libby. If you could, tell us what we're going to talk about today and introduce your guests.
Absolutely. So we've been looking at topics that can help both our experienced coaches and our young coaches, things that make sense to them, things that they may be facing at this time of the year. Today, we're going to focus on the hiring process. We've previously done an episode about if you were interviewing for a job and some of those things to consider going into an interview and searching for a job. We're looking on the other side of things now. So if you are in a position where you have to hire someone, whether it's an assistant, whether it's head coach, that's the role that we're looking at today. And hopefully we're going to be able to give something for all of our listeners, whether you're a head coach having to hire an assistant for the very first time, or if you're an athletic director who's been in the business for a while and you're just looking to get some refreshed tips about what maybe you can do different. That's our topic for today. And we have two guys with us that are great at what they do. They're solid in their roles. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So Scott, we'll start with you. Just tell us who you are, and then tell us about your very first job interview, your very first job as in the coaching world. And what was that interview like?
Scott Lehnhoff, Athletic Director at Church Cibolo Universal City, ISD, which is just north of San Antonio. We've got about 13,000 students, two 6A high schools, Clemens High School and Steele High School in Cibolo. And my first interview was at Robert E. Lee High School in San Antonio with Coach Jimmy Ramos. Um, the job opened up in December. I was there in early January. I just graduated from Baylor University and was trying to find any job that I could find, and it was a learning experience for me. There were the questions that were asked. I was not prepared for. Did not answer them right. I mean, I think Coach Ramos looked at me a couple of times like, are you sure that's how you want to answer that question? And, I remember there was one specific one on, what type of energy do you bring or what type, what's your mood on as a coach? And, I kind of answered like a player, like I was in college. Look, I want to be even keel and never real high and never real low. And first thing, so you have no energy when you come to practice? Like that was his response. So I quickly had to backtrack and kind of restate those things. So definitely a learning experience for me.
All right, Luis, how about you?
Luis Solorio, I'm the Assistant Athletic Director for Harlingen CISD. We got about just south of 17,000 students, got 2 comprehensive high schools and 5 middle schools. I graduated from A&M, and I just didn't know. I knew what I wanted to do. I just didn't know how to get started. So I set up for several interviews, and I was coming off of an elementary campus interview because I just didn't know, And the principal was the wife of the athletic director / head football coach, and so she says, "Hey, you seem." Looking at your background and your math, which helped tremendously, that it wasn't PE, no knock on PE, but it just helps you get into principal's doors a lot quicker. And so she says, "Why don't you go see my husband?" She goes, "It's not that I don't want to hire you, but I think you'd be a good fit at the high school." So I drove over to the high school, ran into her husband, Tommy Roberts, a great head coach, and I'm a lot like Scott. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't really know how to answer. I just thought, I played sports and I'm ready. And, he fixed that really quick. Signed me to a 7th grade football and 7th grade B team basketball. And I tell you what, I had to hit the ground running, and never again after that year did I do basketball. That's a very emotional sport.
I bet we all did jobs and coach things that we had no business doing, but I think coaches, if you're a good coach and a good teacher, you can probably coach and teach anything. So, so let's hop into this. I think when you're looking for a job as a coach, it is so unique. It is so different than any other profession. And I would argue probably even here in Texas, when you're searching for a job, it's the same thing whenever you're trying to find candidates for jobs. So as you guys have an opening on your campus or in your district, where should an athletic director or coach, where should they start that search for that potential candidate? What kind of resources, what kind of networks have been effective for you? Scott, we'll start with you.
I think it starts with your HR processes and your HR websites and making sure that, and helping your HR department advertise your jobs. I'll break this down to pre-COVID and post-COVID. Pre-COVID, it wasn't difficult to find folks, and it was, there wasn't a lot of marketing of our jobs, even on our own district websites, and that has since changed. We've tried to keep those things front and center. As soon as you go to a district website, here it is. Come join our home here in SCUC and be a part of our family. And years past, I mean, I've looked to the coaching tree, the THSCA website. I've posted jobs there. I've searched for candidates there. We've gone to coaching school. We've looked for candidates really late if we needed to, which has changed a lot in the last few years. I've gone to social media, which I thought I would never do. I just always kind of thought it just looked a little desperate, put myself out there on social media. I'm looking for X, a math teacher that can also coach football and soccer, and but we've even done some of that. But I think the thing that I've tried to drive home to our coaches is we need them now. Like this is not just an athletic coordinator and a head football coach or a head football coach or an AD's job. Like we all need to be searching for folks who would be a good part of our staff and trying to, when we see them, try to pitch it to them, because we've got jobs. It's not like in the past. We're going to have jobs here in March, April, and we're always looking for the best people.
I think you brought up a really good point there at the beginning, and it wasn't something that I thought about the very first time I was told I had to go hire an assistant, and I had no idea what that meant, and I didn't know where to even start. And I asked a couple of people, wasn't given just a whole lot of direction. But I think you mentioned working with your HR department and working with your principal on campus and being honest if you don't know where to start. Because I think young coaches, young first-time head coaches can run into a lot of mistakes, especially in 2025. They can make a lot of mistakes that could potentially get them in trouble now. Back in the day, you could ask a lot of things. You can do a lot of things maybe that could fly under the radar, but probably need to have a little bit more consideration here in 2025 as job seekers are a little bit more savvy.
Yeah.
Luis, Scott talked a little bit about that job posting and job description and working with HR with that. So how can you create a job posting or description that attracts the right candidate for your program? How do you do that?
I think what I agree totally with Scott, on the resources you go to. And if it's a head job, we also try to start internally because we hope that we have built the right culture to grow coaches. And then we'll worry about finding an assistant and we find the right head coach, And then, but I think when it comes to how we, vet through the applicants, we always keep in mind, or how we post our job description. A couple of things that we try to do as best we can is we try to have great relationships with principals and with HR where we don't necessarily specify the teaching field to try to help open the platform a little more. And then we try to, work it from there. But that takes a principal really working with you. We don't have to tie it into a certain core subject or elective. And then we try to really focus on what are some of the things in that program that we need to focus on. Was it a difficult situation as to why we have a vacancy, or was it a retirement and that program has done well, but it really focuses on building relationships, or a coach that's well balanced because the staff has that good cop, bad cop already. And so you're looking for a coach that's more on either side. And so those are kind of the things that we kind of look for, because it's very different every time. And so that's kind of how we go into the process is, what are we looking for here? Are we looking for someone that's a little more structured? Are we looking for someone that's a little more X's and O's? Because, we need to build on that experience. Or are we looking for someone that, that can be young, because we're trying to increase our participation first and foremost. And that's kind of what guides us. So it's pretty different every time.
You really hit on what I was going to ask next, so I don't have to ask it, but just the importance of evaluating your current staff and your needs before you start that job process. Coach Lehnhoff, you talked about your first interview when they were asking you about your energy. They may have been looking for somebody to come in with a particular energy to balance out their current staff. And if you haven't had a chance to do that, if you haven't evaluated your current needs, it's really tough to really be able to find the right spot and the right fit for that job. So let's talk about the actual resumes. So you've posted the job, you have the job description. Luis, what about, this is going to be your question. What key elements should you be looking for when you're reviewing those resumes? How do y'all effectively narrow down those candidates?
Without sounding like a broken record, I think we handle it situational, what it is we're looking for. we when you're vetting through the interviews and you're trying to get a short list, I'm sure Scott deals with this also. Nowadays, it's been very different where, I'll see an application of someone, where they're currently a nurse, but they're applying for head baseball. And you're like, but it's just very different on what expectations are out there. So we have certain things we're looking for. We're looking for experience, or we're looking for youth, energy, not that they're mutually exclusive, and so that's kind of how we start the process. And then we try to not necessarily hone in on their teaching field, because like I said earlier, we do have a little flexibility at times. It gets very difficult when you're strapped to a position and it cannot be physical education. And unfortunately, a lot of our young coaches are going to college and they're getting, I don't want to say misguided, but they're not being guided that their opportunities will increase tenfold if they pick a subject area that's in need. The math, the ELA, even Kate now has a lot of possibilities. Where we are pretty much strapped down here is in physical education and special education, because it's very difficult to allow a special education / coach out of their responsibilities to go have an athletic period or coach before or after school. So that's kind of the things that guide us in the vetting of our, applications / resumes.
God, how about you? Anything you want to add to that whenever you start looking at those resumes, and what you guys look for?
Yeah, Luis said it. Certifications and teaching fields is the number one obstacle by far when trying to hire. But I know when I'm looking and I'm pulling up that initial letter of interest or resume, I want to see, is there things in there that this person understands coaching in the state of Texas? If they've got a letter of interest and they've got a resume that mentions nothing about a coaching background, it's that needs to be in there first and foremost for an AD or an athletic coordinator. I'm looking for things. Do you know what THSCA is? Do you know? Do you mention UIL? Do you know that you need a bus certification? You may not have it, but do you know that you need it or you're working on it? Have you? Do you have playing background? What program did you come from? Did you go to high school at a program that I know athletics was important? Did you go to college and pursue some of that stuff there? So all those things. I want to look, does this person understand coaching in the state of Texas and that culture?
That's great input. If I may add, Libby, one thing that probably Scott and I will agree on is one thing we also look for is sometimes you'll see resumes where they're 24, 25, 28 years old and they've had 7 jobs because they're staying at a school a year. And it might be promotions, but it's still a year. And sometimes we try to, it concerns us sometimes when they're too fluid in where they go, because you really don't want to do the process all over again in 12 months for that position. So.
Yeah, that's good call there too. So let's talk about, so you've looked at your resumes, you've narrowed down your candidate list, and you're at that point that you're ready to bring your candidates into interview, and you're looking at checking on references and things. Let's talk about references. When you reach out to references, Scott, we'll stay with you. What are the most important questions to get an honest and accurate picture of the candidate? What are some things that you work with those references?
Well, when you call references, you better really trust that you know who you can trust. I've gotten those before that are, I feel like even from folks I thought I could trust, or I think they were just trying to get a certain person off their staff, maybe whenever they gave a reference. So I typically try not to call folks that are on someone's reference list. I usually, fortunately, been around this area enough, and I'm trying to go find somebody that I know that is not on that list to call and maybe get some feedback on. Sometimes that doesn't work, and I've got to call the folks that are on that list. And you know, I try to sense hesitation. You know, would you hire him again? And if it's kind of, well, yeah, then I'm kind of a red flag for me. So yeah, I'm very careful when when contacting references.
Luis, you want to add to any of that?
Yeah, I totally agree. We maybe call one person on their reference list, and then you try to, if you're fortunate, you know some people who know some people, and you ask very open-ended questions. We don't really ask specific questions. It's just basically, tell us about so and so's experiences there. Do you know of a situation where they handled it really well or really poorly, and go from there. In our district, we do reference checks twice when we're just getting through the process of getting that short list for interviews. Our HR does most of that vetting, and then once we have a short list and we've gotten by the first interview or the pre-screen, then the athletic director and myself and our other assistant athletic director will call and do extra reference checks before we even move forward.
Yeah, you brought up a good point. Is that every district is a little bit different. So going back to what I mentioned earlier, is working with your HR department to find out exactly what are the processes that they have in place that they're going to want you to go through. Oftentimes, when you work in a multi-school district or a bigger district, there's just a little bit more formality that sometimes goes into it versus smaller districts. I know I worked in a mid-sized school district, and our HR department gave us very specific questions. Like you have to ask these questions to those references, and it was standardized. It was across the board. So we made sure we did that. The other thing that I used to do whenever I was hiring coaches, if I saw that they left somebody off the list, off of their reference list, and it was a candidate that I really liked, that I thought would be a good fit for us, I would call that candidate and say, "Hey, I'm about to call them.
Yeah.
What are they going to say about you?" And give that candidate the opportunity to give me their story first,
Sure.
so to speak, and say, "Hey, I'm going to ask them. I'm going to ask them to be as honest as they possibly can. What are they going to tell me? What have you not told me through this process already?"
That's a
And
great
it's not
point.
necessarily a game breaker. And I tell them that. I'm like, it's not going to keep you from getting a job. We just have to know who we're bringing onto our staff and if it fits.
Yeah.
Because we knew that things happen. Not every job is a good fit for everyone.
Yeah.
We were
That's a
all in
great
that
point.
position. We were all in
Yeah.
that position at some point.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the actual interview now. How do you determine the best format for the interview? If whether it's a panel, one-on-one, practical, like I've in my young career, I actually had to go in as an assistant coach and run a practice. I ran an athletic practice, and as part of my interview process, and I've never done that since, but it was still a part of it. So how do you determine what format to use when interviewing candidates? Scott, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think first off is looking, what is the job, and the higher up the job, typically the more, sorry, my banner fell down behind me. The higher up the job, typically the more people are on a panel. Then we're gonna look at questions and see what we want to ask and what's important to our campus, and what we need. The I know a lot of our coaches, our head coaches, our athletic coordinators. As an AD, I don't get the luxury of this as much, because time is a limiting factor. But I know a lot of our coordinators and head coaches are going to bring in a candidate ahead of time, and they're going to kind of have a little more of an informal conversation with a coach, and just kind of get a better feel than what a formal interview gets, and maybe dive a little bit deeper into X's and O's at that time. And then the formal interview with a principal or with a department head or with a district, a district committee, it's going to be, more of whether it's the teaching side of things, or If it's an athletic coordinator, head football coach, more of, all right, whole program, what's the vision? So we've tried to do that just to get a little bit better grasp of people and for them to get to know us a little bit better in more of an informal setting.
Luis, what are some of those questions? What have been the effective questions that you found can kind of get you to understand what type of person you might be hiring? I know that it is very different. There are some coaches and some people out there, candidates, that can just rock an interview. And then we've probably all hired that coach where they're really, really good in the interview. And then you get them on your staff and you're like, what the heck? Like, this is not who we thought we were hiring.
Yeah.
So what are some of the interview questions that you found to be effective to maybe help you gauge
Yeah.
who that coach is and if they really know how to coach?
Like for us, I think what we've changed in the last maybe 5 to 7 years is we've gone from quantity to quality on what our interview process is. So I'll try to be quick. We have let's say it's a head coach we're looking for. We go, the AD and our department will go through their resumes and we will send HR a short list of, let's say, 6 to 8 applicants. As I said earlier, HR will then do the vetting and do their background reference, whatever. Once they say these are good to go, we send them a link and in an email, and it's a pre-screen. And it's just 5 questions that we work with as a department. They're from our department and HR, like you said earlier, where there's specific formats they want us to use. And in those questions are pretty basic. It's not really tell us about yourself. It's more like, why do you coach? What is your style of coaching? What would someone say about your coaching style? And it's just 5 questions. They send us the link back. We tell them, congratulations. We need this link back by Wednesday. Our department in athletics, we review those 6 to 8 videos, and we narrow that list based on their answers to about 3 to 4 applicants. We send them an email. Congratulations, you moved on to the next round. Your interview is Tuesday, 1:00. Here's what you'll need. And then it's going to be, you will provide us with a presentation, 10 to 15 minutes. It can be PowerPoint. It can be hard copy, soft copy, on the 3 things most important to our department: organizational skills, communication skills, and how you build relationships. So they come, they do their presentation, 10, 15 minutes. We tell them thank you. We don't really go into questions about it. We have them take a seat. And our committees, we try to minimize it to, our world, which is, the athletic director and assistant athletic director, if not both of us, the campus principal, and the campus coordinator if it's a head coach of another sport, right? And then we sit them down and we ask them maybe 5 to 6 questions, more directed at scenarios. We really don't ask them stuff like, tell us about yourself, or, what's your background? We know all that already through the resume. What we do is we ask them stuff like, okay, you're a head coach. It's Monday night. You're walking out of practice. Mom is waiting for you outside the gym. She's very upset about her daughter's playing time. Go. And so we try to give them situations where under pressure, you find out what you find out, because there's a lot of people out there, like you said, they interview very well, and they interview well for a reason. And so we just want to make sure that, after all that process is done, we feel pretty comfortable of who we select, because we don't want any surprises. And I'm sure Scott agrees with this, a year and a half, 2 years down the road where we're like, what? How did we get fooled? So we do our best to stay away from the round table, 10 questions, and then you select someone that may prove to be amazing or very difficult to remove in a few years. So that's kind of the process we try to take. We do the same thing with the assistant coaches, but we do those at the campus level. The head coaches, we bring them to central office, and the assistant coaches don't do a presentation, but they do those 5 to 6 questions, but we amp them up to about 6 to 8 questions. And we do the scenarios with them also. We don't really ask them, tell us about yourself. What's your background? We kind of stay away from all that.
Coach Lehnhoff, do you want to add to any of that? Specifically, again, just dealing with the specific interview and the structure of the interview and interview questions that you guys rely on?
Yeah, we do some scenario stuff as well. That trying to get those just trying to get genuine answers is a big one for us. The things I'm looking for when I interview somebody is I feel like this is a good person. I feel like it's a good person for kids. Do they like kids? Do they enjoy being around kids? And do they want to be at Steele Clemens High School? Do they want to? Are they excited to be here, or is this just another stop along the way for them? And those are three things that I'm really trying to hone in, and I think our principals are as well. We feel like if someone with those characteristics, we feel like we can coach up. We feel like that we can guide them, and that we can teach them the X's and O's part. We can teach them even handling a parent or a classroom situation if they've got those characteristics. A question that I have a principal that asked a question, Miss Amy Sirizati over at Clemens. She asked a question about what is one misconception about you as a teacher and a coach, and that's always just a interesting responses because you get an honest answer, and it's usually something that they know about them, and it's usually if it's someone I have some background knowledge or have already talked to references, they've said that about that candidate too, and it's interesting to hear them say it in their own words, and then how they're going to remedy that, or how they work through that, or why that's not a true narrative of them, is always an interesting one.
That's a great question.
Yeah. So in one of my jobs, I was assistant athletic director, and I was in charge of hiring middle school coaches and working with principals. And one of the best pieces of advice I got about the actual interview came from a campus principal as well. And she said, Libby, you really want to use the interview to also set up your own personal expectations of those coaches.
Yep.
So making sure that, hey, you've addressed this in an interview, so that way later on down the line, if those expectations aren't met, you can refer to the interview and said, hey, you said that that you understood the time commitment, that you understood that this role, that these extra duties were part of your job, or whatever it is that you were looking for in that role. And I thought that was no one had told me that before. And that was a great piece of advice. And it was something that I was able to lean on later on in evaluations and different things like that. So being able to use that interview is a little bit more than just finding out about the candidate, but also setting up your expectations for that candidate. This has been a great interview, and y'all are adding a lot of value for all of our coaches and our athletic directors, and I appreciate that. We're kind of coming up at the end of it, but I do think that this part is important. And again, something that as a young coach, I didn't realize that there are some mistakes and there are some don't do's, like you can't do these during interviews that no one told me about, and I probably violated some laws out there. So what are some examples of questions that are just illegal or unethical to ask during that interview? And then how can hiring coaches avoid those? Luis, we'll start with you.
Well, thanks. I would say that the unethical questions or the difficult questions are I'm sure, not that we know of any in our district. I think it's not so much the type of question, it's we try to, whatever we ask one candidate, we make sure we ask all candidates. So if we have a candidate, we don't ever ask a candidate like that. Maybe we'll get an applicant that lives in Houston, right? We don't use that against them. We don't say we're only looking at and applicants from the Valley. So you living in Houston, do you think that's a problem? We don't, because we obviously they're going to move. They're not going to commute, and so we just, as vague as that sounds, we try to ask the same questions of all of them. We can have them expand on answers if need be, but the premise of the question is the same. I can't really think of any specific examples that to us are unethical or anything, because we really don't. That's not how we kind of do things. We try to keep it to the task. I will say this, we do customize for all the same pool of applicants. Once we bring them into the face-to-face interview, the 5 or 6 questions for a head coach or the 6 to 8 for an assistant, we ask the questions based on, like Scott said earlier, what's going on with that program. So if you're having discipline issues, if you're having work ethic issues, if they're not practicing enough issues, if you're having parental issues, then those are where our questions are geared to. So that's kind of what guides us on our questions, and it kind of keeps us out of trouble from doing things where an applicant that didn't get it, comes back and says that was unethical. So we've been very fortunate in that. So I'm going to hand the baton off to Scott.
Well, for your HR processes, you want to make sure that all your interviews are the same or similar. You don't want to ask one set of questions for one candidate, another set of questions for another one. You want to be careful of personal questions. That's usually, but that information is important as well. And you like to maybe in that first part of that interview, kind of tell us a little bit about you, and they share what they want to share. And you don't, female applicants, you plan on having a few kids in the next couple of years? Like you can't, that's something you can't ask. And that's something that really affects us athletically. We obviously we're here for families, and we want our family first type of deal. And so I don't know why that would really sway you off the candidate, but shouldn't probably ask that. I have a friend who's an AD in a very affluent district and area of Texas that housing is such a challenge with coaches coming in and buying a home. Like they can't afford it. So they have 3 apartment complexes, and 2 of those apartment complexes don't allow pets. So one of the things he'll ask is, so what do you like to do on the weekends? You like to go walk your dog? And if a candidate is going to say, well, yeah, I love walking my dog, like, oh, well, geez, there's only one place that person can live and work here, and it's so that was a funny one that I'd heard, but yeah, it's you're just trying to keep everything the same and keep everything professional.
I think I made some mistakes again as a young coach. When I was a head coach, having to hire an assistant for the first time. And as a young coach, I was grinding it out, working, and I wanted my entire staff, like, we're going to put in some hard hours, long hours. And I asked questions, family related questions, like, hey, you've got 3 kids. I noticed that. Is that going to keep you from coming up here and, and working over on the weekends or over the summer? And found out later, they're like, Libby, you can't ask those kind of questions. I was like, what? Why not? I want to be honest. Religion, I do, again, I have a sister that actually works in HR. And so I would sometimes tell her my stories, and she was like, oh, and this is like HR that's not related to the coaching world. And she's like, oh my gosh, coaches, like that's a whole different world, but you can't do that, Libby. In the real world, I'm like, well, we're in athletics, so it's a little bit different, I think. But obviously, things like Scott, you mentioned it, asking them about their family, asking them their religion, like religious preferences and things like that. And something that's, coaches don't always think about. And I can say this probably better than you two, since y'all two still have a job and I don't, I'm not hiring anymore, but asking about sexual preferences and asking about those personal things that are illegal, frankly, that while it may be part of what you're looking for, you just have to figure that stuff out
Correct.
in a way outside of the interview process.
Correct.
All right. I just have one last question, Chris. I know we're coming up on our time, but I want to thank you both for spending time with us. This is huge, clear insights. But are there any final thoughts, or is there anything you wish someone had told you before you were in this role regarding hiring that you would like to pass on? Scott, we'll start with you.
I'd say going back to references, be careful who you ask. Try to go find some folks on the outside, and then I'd also say, from a hiring manager, in this day and age, you're trying to sell them on you as much as they're trying to sell you to get a job. I mean, can I drive you around the city of shirts? Can I show you some things? We're San Antonio. We're just south of New Braunfels, and if you do have children, man, Schlitterbahn's just up the road, and we've got lakes and we got rivers, and San Antonio and the downtown scene, and here's a real estate agent. Call them if you need a home. Like we're pitching to them as much as they're pitching to us nowadays, and I think as someone hiring, you've got to do those things. You've got to paint a picture for them that this is a great place to be, that they fit your culture, and that they're wanted. Just like recruiting kids, people want to go where they're wanted.
Oh, good point. Good point. Luis, any final thoughts or something you wish someone had told you when you first started?
Just have a great relationship with HR. So that when you find that right candidate, or you feel you have, it's like Scott says, it's so competitive out there. Even though enrollment is what it is, there's going to be jobs. And the younger these college grads come to us, they have choices, and so the sooner HR can get the process completed and get them over to board approval, the better. So you don't lose the applicant you wanted, because they're not going to wait forever. They're going to have opportunities. Gone are the days where you assume you were their only interview. And so those, I wish somebody would have told us that, because our relationship with HR is great now, but it sure helps. And of course, the same thing with principals and your coordinators on campus. You tell them, look, as soon as you get vacancies, let's get on it. You don't want to be looking in the summer, because you're going to get what you get. And so those are the kind of things I recommend, is if you're a coordinator or assistant athletic director or an athletic director, is it's a ongoing process, and you always want to stay ahead of it. Always asking your head coaches, how we doing with staffing? Is anybody leaving? Is anybody getting married and moving away? Or is anybody, going to another career? It's conversations you have to have, even monthly, so that come March, April, you're taking care of all that already and getting those interviews done, so that you have a great summer focusing on your program. So that I do recommend. And if this is going to anybody looking for a job, I recommend it's okay to start on junior high. It actually makes you better. Go be a junior high coach. Learn how those kids, teach a kid how to catch a ball, teach a kid how to run. Because when you get to high school and you haven't really gone through that, you're a lot more critical of your junior high coaches, and it's not very fair. When you get them and they're juniors and seniors, you have other issues, but when you get them as 11 and 12 and 13-year-olds, it's you're a dad for the most part. So it's stuff like that. So that I do recommend.
Good point. Well, gentlemen, thank you guys so much for spending time with us. This is going to be so helpful for all kinds of audiences out there. And that's exactly what we try to do at THSCA. We're helping our coaches help kids and help their programs. Thank you guys both for your involvement and support of THSCA. We'll see you around for sure. See you at coaching school back in San Antonio this summer. Chris, I'm going to pop it back over to you.
Cool. Thank you both, coaches. Wonderful stuff. Amazing information. And of course, Libby, for the great questions. And every time you do this so well. It's wonderful to be with y'all. Thank you so much.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, guys.
Hey, of course, I want to thank our guest, but I also want to thank you. I want to thank you for giving me what I consider the most valuable thing you can give, your time and your attention. And I know you don't do it to hear me. You do it for the great messages provided by the THSCA. And hey, if you'd like to associate your company with the THSCA and the Coach's Call podcast, limited sponsorship opportunities are available. You can reach out to me, Chris Doelle, 713-269-4620, or head over to my website, freshmediaworks.com. Once again, thank you so much for supporting Texas high school coaches. Please share this show out to everybody you can so that we can help share these important messages. Thanks again, and we'll catch you next time on The Coach's Call. The interviews in this show are brought to you by the Texas High School Coaches Association. THSCA provides to its more than 26,000 members access to the people, events, tools, and resources to help them thrive in the profession, become trusted leaders in their communities, and live balanced and successful lives. The work and sacrifice coaches do every day is vital to the development and success of student athletes. The THSCA supports these efforts. We fight for every coach, provide them with the connections and resources to improve their lives, and help all student athletes throughout the state enjoy lasting success. The mission statement is simply this: to help and serve Texas high school coaches as they work to help and serve student athletes. Helping coaches help kids. For more information on the THSCA, visit www.thsca.com.